U.S. corn estimates going higher and the market going down. Jerry Gidel is ready to talk about this and more right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we have had the October USDA report, and the government agency is estimating a slightly higher corn production estimate for the United States.
Yes, they are. It's an interesting twist out here on things. The trade was looking for a 2 or 3 tenths decline, and that while the USDA came up with a 2 tenths of a percent, 2 tenths of a bushel higher number at excuse me at 183.6 bushels on corn. Interestingly enough, uh, the USDA has always in the past done some real big adjustments in the October numbers here on state yields. And they actually did more than I thought they were going to do this year, from the standpoint that our harvest had been a little bit behind and we weren't getting, well, the around the 1st of October here, we were still below 20% on U.S. harvest. And so I'm not sure some of the words coming from the country about seed moisture had really got into the particular commentary. And that I think it had seeped already into the beans because they ended up taking that down 1 to 2 tenths on that particular number. But overall, the market numbers were so modestly different in that the market tried to do a little bit of a bounce after the report, but it was very modest at this point. And really, we got into a situation where the U.S. soybean number that was, as I said, down 1 tenth, and the corn up 2 tenths, really kind of put the focus back on our typical weekend harvesting situation here, where people want to, the commercials like to go ahead and pre-hedge stuff because of the amount of corn and soybeans that might move across their scales over the weekend and be sold. So they like to have that hedge. And I think that's kind of what I think happened as the day went on there in the last hour and a half of trading from there. But there's definitely some interesting trends within those USDA's numbers, which I think are kind of interesting in both corn and soybeans.
Well, still in the corn side of things, the global stocks were also lower than the market expected.
Right, right. Well, there was some adjustments here in primarily in the Ukraine, Russia scenario. Uh, those countries out there are areas that have had some weather issues, and there's still a lot of commentary coming around. There's not a lot of impact on the what's remaining in Russia here. It's mostly in the wheat area more than it is in the corn area there. The issues in Ukraine continue to be kind of bounce around because of the war out there. South America, the twist on both of those, by the way, corn and soybeans and Argentina and Brazil, looks like the USDA decided to punt on both of those because we're really in its own way on Argentina. There's strong indications that some of their first crop corn that they like to put in before they put their wheat beans in, and that is going to be less acres, and so that puts it in a little lower potential crop size later in the season. But they decided not to do any of that changes because of the dryness. And in Brazil, there's more and more reports popping out there. Another tributary of Brazil's Amazon, was to the point where they couldn't do any kind of transportation on that. So that's the second one that's had that happen. Well, that's not a real strong indications that there's abundant moisture. Now, I know that seasonally there's been ideas the last couple weeks here that the summer monsoons are going to be arriving there and all that. But now the latest one is this coming weekend and into the week after. So basically, we're talking about mid to late October for this seasonal rain activity in Mato Grosso, Goiás, Minas Gerais, and northern areas to pick up, and that's putting things again in kind of a dicey situation as you get the beans out, and then you turn around and have to get the corn in and have it all done really by the uh, March 15th, the middle of that month. If you get past that, you're really putting some jeopardy on your second crop corn in the north. So lots of subtle things going on here, but the USDA is just kind of sitting back and trying to wait and see on both of those South American and issues down there. And we've had some other areas that around the world that have been dinged up and that on things accordingly here.
Oh, now on the soybean side of things, there was no big wild card for the markets, right?
No, the U.S. yields, as we mentioned before, there was some adjustments being made. Interestingly enough, both in corn and soybeans, the Indiana, Ohio, which the USDA was really optimistic in August and had some very good yields out there for both those states. They trimmed them slightly last month, and they did it again this time pretty aggressively. I think they took 6 or 7 bushels out of Indiana's corn, and Ohio, the same thing. And it's because of the fact that the rain activity that occurred in July, and there's some scattered opportunities across northern Illinois, didn't really reach them. And so the the development of Indiana, Ohio's crops were stunted. Some of that also impacted Wisconsin and Michigan. Iowa, though, they and Missouri uh, kind of went up on their yields this last month in both those corn and soybeans. Well, the twist of it is that the northern plains, which is always a little interesting world out there because of the soil quality at that point remained the same. So there's still some questions being out there within our national yields. So I think that there's going to be, and particularly if we continue to have rapid harvest and minimal moisture, actually the best things of all things right now would end up being a nice big 1 to 2 inch rain to go from middle of Nebraska all the way to Columbus, Ohio, and that's not doesn't it's not in the forecast because that would also help stabilize and maybe even add a little bit more moisture back into these seeds there, because when you're delivering stuff substantially below the price point, you are in essence uh, reducing your yield. Now, to some extent, corn, probably half the corn in the U.S. or more is into farm storage, so it's not going to be measured that way, and it could come out with higher moisture than what it went in at, depending on how the winter goes. But overall, here the USDA data had some interesting things, but still a lot of question marks out here as to how these final yields are going to come about on things. And
Yeah, and you also had the recent news of frost in some parts of the Midwest.
Oh, there's a chance for some freeze like this coming week. I think mostly Tuesday and Wednesday morning. But I'd have to say probably because of the timing here. If this had happened 3 weeks ago, it had a lot more of an impact. But right now, it's probably going to have a modest, probably even limited impact on U.S. yields over the freeze this late in the season. But conditions around the world uh, definitely are something that's going to continue to be watched closely here on things. The excuse me, the activity we've had uh, recently. Uh, one thing that we all have to keep track of, myself included, is the fact that the yields might still be some slippage in here, but we're still going to have substantial crop. Geez, these yields, even the best of luck here, best of trends on this thing, we're not going to go down below 180 or 181 on U.S. corn yields. We probably won't go below 52 on beans, and both of those will still be record levels. They might not be as high as they are right now, or as projected as high as they are right now, but they're still going to be hefty numbers. So the world output is going to continue to be highly important here going forward. South America is, of course, going to be the biggie, but even some of the final scenarios here in excuse me, in Europe and Black Sea and things like that will still have a market impact at this point. The real twist of it too is in the Russian side of this issues. They've had they announced a very hefty 3.5 million metric ton sale of wheat to Egypt. They've been really hot about getting a certain amount of their coverage out this year for the whole year, all the way through April. And Algeria is in a tiff with France, and so they were interested in making a longer term deal with the Russian exporters, and that looks like they've got something established about 500,000 tons a month on wheat. But the tail end of this week, the Moscow had called in, made two statements. First, they stated that they were going to raise their export fees 41%. Now, it turns out 41% on a low number is about $4 or $5, which isn't a big deal. But at the same time, I think they are getting concerned that because of the issues in the new lands and maybe some further declines in their total supplies, and also these deals, that I think they had a meeting of the domestic exporters. Now, by the way, there's no Cargills or Dreyfus or people like that in the exporting world in Russia. That happened. They all left after the invasion of Ukraine, and so the Moscow the officials do have a little bit more pull on what can happen or not happen. But it looks like there's definitely some concerns about slowing down any kind of sales. And I think it's rightly so. They're in a situation where it's highly more important that they keep their prices reasonable in Russia and at the same time have
So consider all the scenario with complicating weather in the United States. What's your marketing strategy for the coming weeks?
well, I'm kind of hunkered down a little again after this pullback, but I am looking to be a marketer if we can move these things back up to a little under $11 on uh, November beans, and that moving it up into the 35 to 45% kind of range. And on the corn, a similar situation of getting over 40% if we're getting back into the 10, excuse me, the 430 to 440 range on both of those in that scenario, because once we kind of get this kind of usual push that the exporters want to get a certain amount of supplies under their belt, and that then that could be a kind of a quiet affair here the end of the year into early 2025 until we really get into the South American weather and growing season issues and things like that. So in the short term, kind of anticipating maybe one more push. Now, maybe I'm getting a little long in the tooth on this, so hopefully there is still an opportunity for pushback, at least to the previous levels, but maybe just a little bit higher would be my hopeful approach here at this point. And then, so we got some Christmas money in the people's pocket for the end of the year.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. Take care, sir. Have a good weekend.